Hello, and welcome to the What Hi-Fi podcast. Yes, after various extended breaks, the What Hi-Fi podcast is back. We're here to discuss what's interesting in the world of hi-fi, home cinema, and everything in between. My name's Joe Cox, and I'm the content director on What Hi-Fi, and I'm joined by editor-in-chief Alistair Stevenson, deputy editor Andy Madden, and staff writer Harry McCarroll. And this week, we're going to be talking about Europe's biggest high-end hi-fi show, that's High End Munich, and going through a few of the highlights and products to look out for in the coming months. We'll also be getting the lowdown on the new Panasonic TVs for 2024, fresh from the company's annual launch event. We'll find out what's new, why you should care, and quite how annoyed somebody can get by the presence of an integrated soundbar. And finally, we will talk about one of the biggest product launches of the year so far, very fresh, the brand new Sonos Ace headphones, tongue teaser, which, spoiler alert, are something of a mixed bag. But we will get to that mixed bag later. So, lots to talk about. Let's start with Munich. And I think we're going to start with Harry. It was your first high-end hi-fi show. What did you make of it?
Yeah, so I've done one IFA and two Bristols. I was going to say a pair of Bristols, but that means something very different.
There are the trade shows for anyone not in the know. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, kind of it gets hyped up to be quite a lot because it's kind of, this is now the big one. And the big deal, it's obviously the biggest proper tech audio show in Europe, as far as I know. So yeah, first sort of impressions of it were kind of, it is a very different beast to Bristol, certainly. Because if you haven't been, Bristol's kind of just one location in a hotel and you just go up the floors. Whereas Munich's a lot more, although it's one big expo center, it's much bigger, much more intense, and a lot more sort of high end. So I have never seen, well, actually, no, that's not true. I had rarely seen stuff that was 800,000 euros or whatever whatever the prices were of some of the stuff that you see. So yeah, a kind of cool experience to go out and do my first one. But I had our technical editor Ketan with me, so that's kind of like walking around with Yoda. He kind of,
and it's quite a manageable one, I think. Compared, I know you said it's much bigger than Bristol, but I think compared to IFA, which is kind of set across various warehouses that never ever seem to be finished. Whereas Munich's in the dedicated event space, it's big, but it's quite manageable. There's sort of 3 or 4 big halls, 3 or 4 big corridors of demo rooms. There's a lot of gear, but easier to get around.
It's so much easier than Bristol. Bristol, I was there for 3 or 4 days and didn't really ever figure out where I was, whereas Munich is just 2, or it's kind of technically 4 main halls, and then you have just kind of bit above, which is your next level, and then, like you say, there's kind of corridors that go between that have actual listening rooms. But once you kind of figure out the layout, you're fine. You're sort of good to go. There was only one brand that I've never discovered where they were. I won't say who that was because they might find out.
I kind of feel like Bristol is a bit like the movie The Raid. You kind of start at the bottom and have to fight your way up to get to like the very top where all the actual hardware is.
Yeah, just wandering around with my pair of claw hammers or whatever he has. Yeah, so it was good. Yeah, a good experience. And hopefully I'll get to go back next year.
What about highlights then? Product highlights. I know you were sort of charged with seeing crazy weird stuff, but you saw some slightly less crazy stuff as well, I think.
Yeah, I got
what's the cool stuff people can look out for?
Yeah, it was kind of weird and wonderful, but I did end up seeing most things of note. Obviously, you don't get a massive amount of time, so you can't see everything. What I liked, we reported on the Chord Suzy, and we did the news on it, and we were all kind of thinking, not kind of thinking, what is this? But it was a kind of case of you have to kind of see it to figure out what it is. So it's their kind of, to slightly explain, it's their kind of preamp power amp, but then it's a modular design, so you can then just literally, like Lego, and it really is like Lego. We weren't sort of being flippant when we said that. You can just plug in other modular core products, so you can stick in a Hugo 2 DAC, and then you can put in a to-go streamer, and then you can kind of build your little modular block, and kind of create your chord system. It's just a really nice way of doing it, and their stuff always kind of, I mean, we like the way all their stuff sounds, as far as I can tell from the last couple of years. So it was really nice just to see a kind of funny little design, but that actually works, that isn't designed for design's sake.
Obviously with a funny name as well, because it's a chord product.
There was a reason they called it Susie, but you're asking the wrong person as to why they called it that. I think the Hugo is. Yeah, it was I can't remember what Susie was. I know that the Hugo was to do with you go. I might have made this up in my head retrospectively, but I'm sure it's to do with something like you go with the. Oh God.
I love the idea that you might have just made that completely. That's brilliant.
Yeah,
it sounds like they come up with their names at 1 a.m. in the pub.
Yeah, I'm sorry to anyone at Chord if that's not, but you can have that that's part of the Chord lore. Yeah, so that was kind of a fun thing to see. Lots of horn-based speakers seems to be a big thing. I don't know if that's the case every Munich. So Stein had a pair of their top lines, which kind of look like a standard pair of floor standards. Then you have these massive orange horns. How you would fit them into your sort of domestic listing, I don't really know. And then the ESD.
I think that's quite high-end Munich, yeah. Massive pair of horn speakers, yeah.
Yeah. But the ESD Super Dragons, which was like a whole entire system that was nearly €1 million. And that was just, I mean, the size of, I mean, you could have put at least half of our, not the larger members of our team, but someone like Cash, who's our audio editor, definitely you could have fit her inside one of the massive sort of gaping tubes that they had. Don't tell her I said that.
Is that our official hi-fi measurement for height? How many caches you can fit into it? That's how we measure speaker height.
Well, Cash, who is our hi-fi and audio editor for people listening, she does like to go and stand next to tall things, not generally, but definitely at trade shows. So she probably has a large folder of pictures of her stood next to large speakers at some of us. Sounds weird, but she almost certainly does. So yeah, that is our measurement, really.
Yeah. I've just been fired. She's just got rid of me. But they played some of the worst music I've ever heard. I'm really sorry to the people there, but they played like the German national anthem. The tune was the German national anthem, but they put some weird sort of female vocals over to the tune. Oh, anything you could have picked. Anyway, next time I'll tell them.
There's definitely we could have it now, but there's definitely a conversation about trade show demo music, the problems with it.
It's usually Dire Straits.
Did you have your bingo card ticking off the songs as you went along?
Exactly.
Yeah, Dire Straits definitely will be in there, I think. But the show's one of those ones where you have the £1 million stuff it's quite hard to. You just got to go in and listen to it really and enjoy it and enjoy the experience. I try not to be too critical or think too hard about what's going on with the actual ins and outs of the music, because when you're looking at systems like that, it kind of doesn't really come into what even we kind of review or have ever reviewed. So I mean, people that are spending the money on this kind of stuff, our opinion probably isn't even valid. So you just got to kind of I just had to go in there with an open mind, have a look, see what's being played, have a listen, and just end up coming. I just having the opportunity to do it is great, because it's just something you never get to do otherwise.
Yeah,
a bit like driving a Lamborghini. Basically, it's incredibly expensive. If you enjoy it, then it's worth the money. If you don't, it's not. And for everyone else, it's kind of, it's not your business anyway.
Yeah, true. Although I would argue it's like driving a Lamborghini and then putting like a pair of crap tires on it and driving in reverse gear. But sorry, I've got to get over it.
Yeah, are you going to continue your petition to get everybody in hi-fi shows to play Baby Metal as a test track, Harry?
That is, you've projected your musical taste onto me there, but that's fine. I'm more sort of, anyway, let's not get into what I like.
We'd all like something a bit more varied, I think, at trade shows like this, yeah? Is that the official balanced answer?
It was just that song.
Okay, fine. Otherwise, you're very happy. Good. So, Cord, Susie, very expensive speakers. Any other highlights? I know Andy was out there as well, so I'm going to ask him. But from you, Harry,
some cool more stuff that just kind of goes into the cool. Wow, look at this kind of section. That obviously, which is obviously part of it. So there's a company called iZoost, IXOOST. I think they're an Italian company. And I get the impression they're as much a sort of design brand as an audio brand, but they basically, and you'll see this on our Instagram, that they basically take car components from sort of supercars and hypercars, and then they sort of redesign them and repurpose them into speakers. So you can have a wireless speaker made out of a Lamborghini Huracan, and they'll just take the sort of front grille. Again, we've got pictures of it, and then that's your kind of cabinet for the speaker. Didn't get to listen to them, which is a shame, but they are kind of things to be looked at, which was very, very cool. They had sort of tires that they'd repurposed as speakers. There's a cool Mercedes frontage, which is again on the front grille, that is repatriated as a speaker. So it's about £30,000. So if I had the money, put 30 grand to blow on something, come into my house and look at my Lamborghini Huracan speaker.
Like you do, yeah.
I did, and there was actually a Lamborghini there, of course.
Yes, there was a Lamborghini edition Technics turntable, I believe, an SL 1200 that had Lamborghini hints of Lamborghini on it. I don't think it was packed with carbon fibre and could do 0 to 60.
Exactly. Yeah. No, it was more than that. No.
So there's lots of weird and wacky stuff there. Obviously, it's one of those shows where you see a lot of brands that we deal with day to day, a lot of our bread and butter brands, as you'd probably say. And yes, there is a lot of high end stuff there, like we've discussed, but there's also like more affordable bits starting to creep into high end, even though it's called high end. It's a bit of a misnomer, really, because all the brands come from all sorts of countries and have their business meetings there, and they launch a lot of new products that start at the more entry level as well. We saw, I think, a few launches out there. ELAC launching their new debut series that we managed to sniff out or on the ground. That starts at a couple of €100, I think, a speaker. Q Acoustics obviously launched their new 3000 series there.
3000, yeah.
Sorry, yeah. So there's something for everyone, really. I think Munich's one of those shows where I've been to maybe 4 or 5 now. It's definitely one of the highlights of the calendar. I mean, it's just so well laid out, and you can literally go from one listening room to the next and easily spend like half an hour in each room just listening to what's going on, seeing what's in there. Some of the brands you'll have heard of, some of the brands you won't have heard of, but there's demos going on the whole time you're there, really. So you can quite easily lose yourself. The day can fly by when you're trying to find out what's new as well and what people are launching, and then you get distracted by what's playing. Your day can kind of fly by really quickly. But yeah, there's a lot of quite cool hi-fi on display from the brands that we tend to cover. So I quite like the look of these new Mission half-width separates, the 778 CDT Transport and the 778S Streamer. They're kind of new models that they've launched. We reviewed their 778X amp, which we really liked, gave that 5 stars, and they had these 2 new separates lurking on the stand. That's another thing with Munich as well. If no one's ever been before, I definitely encourage you to go. You'll just find new products that haven't even been launched yet, kind of there lurking in the background that manufacturers will talk about if you point it out and say, "Oh, I've not seen that before. Can you tell me a bit about that?" So there's a few kind of little stars knocking about, hidden away. And yeah, I saw the new quad pre-power amp as well, the Quad 33303. That looked
was
quite
very
interesting.
Nice.
Yeah. Been a while since we've seen some new quad electronics. I've got quad on the brain. So be looking forward to those coming out. Plenty of stuff there for people to see.
Is it getting bigger? Because
it is. Go on, Al. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, I mean, how is it comparing to last year? Because obviously last year was the first one since COVID, right? Is that right?
Yeah, I think you might be right. Yeah. No, I mean, it's chocker. I mean, it's busy. It is busy. There's a big buzz around the show. I mean, yeah, the corridors were pretty full. trying to get a seat in some of the demo rooms, you have to wait a little bit of time, depending on how good the demo is or how poor the music choices are, as you've kind of talked about already. But there's a lot of hustle and bustle there, and there's a lot of, obviously from our point of view, we get to speak to a lot of the manufacturers who we see and speak to when we're calling in products for review. So it's good for us to kind of get there and get amongst it and start putting in requests for products that we want to review in the coming months, really.
Sounds good. Loads of high-end stuff, loads of affordable stuff, as you mentioned. Also, is it home cinema? I had the PMC system in mind as well. PMC built a massive Dolby Atmos music system, and we're doing some interesting demos about Dolby Atmos music. So obviously it's music, it's hi-fi, but with speakers all around the room, above you, behind you, under your chair, you name it. And that, it did sound great. And I think I definitely came away from that sort of convinced by the idea of Dolby Atmos music, but still probably stuck in my ways, thinking I don't actually want to hear all music like this. But when it's music made for that situation and you've got an amazing system that can show it off, it can sound pretty amazing. That was another one of my little highlights. Good. Another successful high-end Munich. Let's move on. Let's talk about Panasonic TVs, from hi-fi to TV. Al, you were out with Panasonic last month, I think it was, for their annual big TV launch. Tell us what's exciting, what's coming.
Yeah. So went off to Germany, had a little look at all the new stuff. Obviously, we already knew what Panasonic was doing for its flagship because we saw the Z95A OLED at CES. So Berlin was basically all the step-down stuff. So, its rival to the LG C series, B series, which included the Z90A, which sadly, like the C series, is a regular OLED. Doesn't have the brightness boosting MLA tech you'll get on the flagship. And then the Z85A, which was basically their B series rival. No firm pricing on Europe yet. And sadly for our US people, again, Panasonic not coming to the US this year, which is a bit of a shame because we've used to say until I think last year they were one of the best as delivering as the director intended picture. But the big thing that I found exciting was just seeing the step down models because they look very, very good. And they look like they've taken note of some of the things we talked about last year. So leaning into a new CPU, which is meant to actually basically reduce the amount of faff they make to the picture to make it even more authentic. A lot of stuff around AI, like everyone else, about analyzing individual.
Was that faff, Al? Is that the technical term?
That's the technical term. Everyone's going on about it now. AI
faff reduction. I can see that on a spec sheet. I feel like
exactly.
I've read that.
I've gone technical here, but no, they've basically, like everybody, got a new set of CPUs which are all about AI and doing a lot of picture analysis to basically make color reproduction more authentic and make it look a lot nicer. I mean, obviously we generally turn on filmmaker mode to turn everything off, but it is interesting that they're going down that route. They've also done a few things, like everybody, for trying to push stuff to gamers. So if you are one of the weird people like myself who has a very powerful gaming PC and chooses to connect it to a TV rather than a proper monitor, they now actually do support 144 hertz rather than 120 hertz. Which basically means that they can put display more frames per second. But again, not such a big deal for anybody but weirdos like me with a PC because the PS5 and Xbox only go up to 120 hertz. I'm also going to put my money where my mouth is and say that Joe's little hint at the start was me, and I'm going to continue my campaign that I do not like bolted on soundbars on a TV because they've done the same thing again this year where the Z90A does come with a bolted on soundbar, as do basically anything below the Z85, which I've never liked. I'm going to reserve judgment because we haven't had it in for testing, but I've always found them to be a bit of a pain because they just don't match the performance we've gotten off even a basic soundbar. I'm talking basic Sonos Beam Gen 2 type level, let alone an ARC. So if you're going to spend 1,000 plus 2,000 quid on an OLED, you're probably going to want to back it up with a decent sound system, like the PMC you saw, Joe. How much that go for?
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. It's It's a weird one. So is that most of Panasonic TVs will come with an integrated soundbar?
Most of
mid-range and up.
Most of the OLED, mid-range OLEDs and up will come with it, like last year, which has always been the case. Like last year, the MZ 1500 had it, and the MZ 2000 did. The Z90A is the same. The only difference again that they've got is the Z90A doesn't have up firing, so you don't get the up firing speakers that you do on the Z95A. So Atmos support isn't really, even virtual is not there, so you can't really expect that. Which again kind of puts me off the idea of having it. I'd rather just have my own very nice system and put it up that way. But we do know a lot of people use their own speakers, so I kind of get Panasonic's argument. I just would prefer to have an option to have a cheaper model without it to save a few pennies, because we are in a cost.
So they haven't teamed up with anyone to do the audio on the TVs like Philips did with Bowers and Wilkins. Is it their own?
So they've got their partnerships there where some of the higher end models are tuned by, but again, it's not on the cheaper models. It's kind of, it's very much exactly the same as last year. The driver configuration between the two is the same. They didn't make any really big performance claims at the event about boosting audio, to be honest with you, which again makes me think that they're going to be very similar to last year's. Again, reserving judgment until we get them into our like listening rooms and viewing rooms. But it sounds very much like for like with last year from what I saw. It's more about the picture enhancements which look interesting, because as I said, they focused a lot on talking about getting proper, authentic as the director intended, which again, until last year, even we were saying was one area they had a massive lead. It was only last year during awards where we gave the Sony A80L and A95L a lot of credence for that, saying these guys are gaining ground. So what I'm actually more excited about personally is them getting their crown back on that. Because as I said, all the chat they've talked about is basically improving filmmaker mode, improving the actual processing if you are doing that to make it more authentic. And I think that's more interesting. So obviously they do a lot of attention with that with their Master OLED Pro branding, which is on the Z90, which basically refers to them taking a bit of extra care tuning and trying to make the OLED look a bit more accurate and more authentic. I think as well, the one thing that I'm going to say, which is probably going to have everyone rolling their eyes, that got me excited, was the fact that they had some quite competitive looking mini LED TVs, which I know mini LED, I'm just going to pretend nobody knows what this means, but a mini LED is basically is a refined version of LCD, which is meant to get TVs able to perform a bit more like an OLED, even though they still rely on a backlight. They basically have more granular control of the zones, so they can charge individual pixels differently and have more granular control about which ones are going bright or dim at any one time. So you won't get perfect blacks like an OLED, which doesn't have a backlight, just charges individual pixels, but it's much more like for like and generally a lot cheaper. And they did a really nice demo of the Z95W, which is basically, as far as I can tell, pretty much identical to the Z95A OLED outside of a mini LED. And if it's a lot cheaper, that's a pretty compelling offer, because it looked really nice during the demo as I saw.
Nice. Okay. So if you were a betting man, 6 months' time, who do you think is going to be making the award-winning TV? Which brand or which model do you think is most exciting for anyone who's watching and in the market for a new TV this year?
Oh, it's got to be Lowy, right? They've got their new OLEDs just came out. If you have the price of a yacht or that, then you're fine. No, I'm actually quite excited this year about OLEDs, because obviously last year we had the first wave of MLA powered flagship OLEDs turn up, which were taking on Samsung's QD OLED tech to basically fix the biggest perceived problem with flagship TVs, which is OLEDs can't go as bright as LCD. Few teething issues with the MLA sets we had. A lot of them were struggling with shadow detail, and there were some issues with color reproduction in certain conditions. That happens on any first generation TV panel. Now we've got the second generation coming out. I think it's going to be much more competitive and much more interesting to see how those look. I'm going to reserve judgment, but I think it's going to be a quite close.
I'm still waiting for the brand or the model.
I'm going to reserve judgment, because obviously Sony last year.
That's the What Hi-Fi way. Well done.
But I've got high hopes for everybody, because everyone's coming out with some really interesting stuff. And obviously at the moment, the only set we've had in from the current generation have been Samsung's flagship S95D, which, really good. One of the best we've had in years. It scored perfect 5 stars. Unlike the S95C last year, which got 4. So big step forward. And we had the LG C4, which again, the team, we really liked it, gave it 5 stars, which proved to be a really big step up in picture quality, despite the spec sheet looking very, very similar to last year's. But I am going to reserve judgment and say I think they all look really nice at the moment. And then once we've all had
Very
the
wise.
testing, I will make my, we will make our decision about which one's going to win.
What hi-fi verdicts will be released. No, very wise, but it sounds like lots of interesting, exciting things in TV land for people who might be in the market this year. Shame about the integrated soundbar. I guess the only thing on that I was thinking as you were talking is that for people of whom I'm sure there are plenty who won't ever add any speakers to their TV, that they should get better performance than they'd get from a flat panel if they've got a soundbar there. But as you say, we would always encourage people, especially if you're spending a bit of money on a TV, to save up, spend a bit of extra money too on a soundbar, or even better, a pair of speakers or a surround sound system. But, needs must, and a soundbar is better than a plain old flat panel for sure. Good. Okay, that's Panasonic TVs covered off. Sounds good. The final thing we were going to talk about, Sonos Ace headphones, perhaps genuinely one of the biggest product launches of the year so far. Oh, and there they are. A first for Sonos, of course, the first pair of headphones in their range. And I think, as I alluded to at the start, unfortunately, a little bit of a mixed bag. Not all bad by any stretch of the imagination, plenty of good, but a bit of a mixed bag. Andy, you're holding them. Tell us more about them.
I am holding them. I'm going to put them down now because I will just play with them while I'm talking, which isn't great video content. So Sonos Ace headphones. Where do you start with them? Massively hyped product. Obviously, been talking about them for God knows how long, really. They've been on their way and they finally arrived. And we got them into our test facility, put them through their paces, indoors, outdoors. Very like you say, Joe, bit of a mixed bag, really. Always going to be a tough ask, I think, coming into a market, £450/$, so they're not what you describe. Not what you describe as entry level. And as we all know, if you're in the headphone business or you're into headphones or wireless headphones for that matter, you got a lot of competition at that price point. You got a lot of the big hitters are there, your Sonys, your Bose, your Apples. I mean, there's a lot of guys there who know how to make headphones. So the Sonos Ace kind of turn up, and I think first impressions are pretty solid, to be fair. I mean, they're nicely made. They're kind of like a halfway house. I'll pick them up again just so you can kind of see. They're kind of like a halfway house between a Sony XM5 over, if you're familiar with the design, and the AirPods Max. A bit more streamlined than the AirPods Max, which I kind of, when we were testing them, we were looking at the other headphones that are around at that price point that I just kind of described. And you kind of see that the Sonos actually do look good. They've been designed quite nicely, and they make something like maybe the AirPods Max look a little bit bulky now. I mean, the AirPods Max have been around for quite a long time. Positive things about the design for Sonos. You've got the control, this little button on the side. I'll hold it up to the camera. The control key, which is there to control volume and skipping, pausing, play, that kind of stuff. That works really well, and controlling the headphones works well. They are comfortable. I found them reasonably comfortable. I did find they heated my ears up a little bit, to be honest, compared to, I know, some of the other reviews that are out there. On the face of it, when you get them out of the box, they're not too bad, to be fair.
So plenty of positives.
Yeah, definitely. But then you kind of listen to them and things start to fall down a little bit, to be honest. I mean, in isolation, I think, and we think, they sound okay in isolation. But like I said before, we're quite fortunate and in the position that we can listen to all the rivals at the money. So basically, when we were testing them, I know they were compared to the Bose, to the Sony, to the Apple. And yes, in isolation, they sounded weighty and solid and perfectly listenable. But then you put on the Sonys and you put on the Apples and you put on the Bose, and you can tell there's a bit of a gap in terms of quality. The Sonos just don't sound as detailed or as clear or as kind of expressive as the other pairs. And when you're spending that kind of money, on a pair of headphones, you kind of want them to be competitive with the kind of best in class, or you certainly kind of have expectations based on what's out there for them to perform to a certain standard, and they just kind of fall short on that. And
because they're more expensive than the Sonys and the Bose, right?
Yeah, I mean the Sonos. I mean, to be fair, they've been brave and come in right smack bang £450. We're going premium, and they. But also that means they're at a slight disadvantage because the Sony XM5s, for example, they've been around for almost a couple of years now, I think. So, and the price has dropped. So they're a slight disadvantage in that the Sonys, through no fault of their own. But you've got products that are out there that are 5 stars, that do sound amazing, that are now considerably cheaper. But even at the same money, I mean, the Bose Quiet Comfort Ultras, we'd take those over the Sonos. Right. And the Apples to a certain to a degree as well. Yeah, I mean, the Sonos are okay. The noise cancelling is okay as well. But again, you compare it side by side with the Bose, who are sort of kings of noise cancelling, if you want to put it that way. And the Bose just do it better. And similarly with the Sonys as well, we feel like their noise cancelling is better too. So a very mixed bag for Sonos, but also I suppose they've also got some unique selling points for Sonos customers, as you'd expect. It's not just a pair of Bluetooth headphones.
Yeah, well, that was the sort of big thing everyone was waiting for, wasn't it? It was, yes, it's not just we want this company to make some headphones. We want them to be Sonos headphones, and Sonos are known for multi-room. They're known for all their products talking to each other, that kind of seamless connectivity, throwing the music around from room to room. And I guess the hope was the headphones would become part of that family and do all the same things, but that's not quite the case, right?
No, it's kind of, they are and they aren't, really. I think for some Sonos customers it might be okay, but I think for a few others then they might not have gone quite as far as people would have hoped. So they're not Wi-Fi. There's no Wi-Fi built in for streaming music from like streaming services through the app or anything. So you can't connect them in that kind of way. What you can do is you can pair them with a Sonos soundbar. Well, at launch, you can only pair them with one Sonos soundbar, which is the Sonos Arc, which is another problem, which I'll come to in a minute. So you can pair them with the Sonos Arc, and you can use this feature called TV Swap, which basically allows you to beam the sound instead of coming out of your Arc soundbar, it will be beamed to the headphones. So, like for late night listening, you want to listen to something when everyone else is in bed, and you want to kind of turn the volume up without having to use the soundbar. Then, you can use the Sonos headphones to do that. And like I showed before, that little key, you press that and hold it. And once you've got you set up the headphones as you would with the Sonos app, and you tell them that you've got a Sonos Arc in your system. And then when you want to change from the bar to the headphones, you just press and hold the button, and the sound will just switch from the bar to the headphones. And yeah, it's pretty seamless, to be fair, and it's quite a nice little feature. It's a shame that it doesn't work with other soundbars at launch. Sonos have said they're working on it, and it should be coming. And also, it only works with iOS devices as well, which is another kind of misstep in my opinion. So Android users can't take advantage of it at launch either. So it's a bit of a weird one, really. But also, they've got something called True Cinema, which, if you're familiar with TruePlay, when you set up a Sonos speaker, it kind of auto calibrates itself to your room and your kind of room conditions. And what True Cinema does through the Sonos Ace, it kind of tries to recreate that room environment through the headphones for like a more immersive kind of 3-dimensional listening experience. So theoretically, you shouldn't feel like you're just listening through a traditional pair of headphones. They should add an extra layer of immersion and kind of spatial processing, which unfortunately again isn't available at launch. Which for a company like Sonos, who wants to kind of really, I don't know, they sort of need to hit the ground running at this kind of price point, and all the features you sort of expect to be ready to roll out and are there, and they're kind of not. And it sort of leaves me wondering whether they kind of launched a bit too soon, or maybe there was a problem with, I know there's been big changes to the Sonos app recently, and a lot of Sonos customers I know are kind of complaining that features have been removed and the app isn't as easy to use as it used to be, or Sonos has kind of made a bit of a taking a bit of a backward step in its app. And I'm wondering personally, I don't know, obviously I don't know if this is true or not, but whether kind of changing the app has also hindered some of the features and functionality they wanted to bring to the headphones. But I mean, that's just purely me speculating. But it sort of feels like they're not quite the finished article when they've been launched, which again, for a company like Sonos, I feel like they maybe should have launched with everything ready to go.
Yeah,
it's
I mean, certainly
weird.
at that price. Go on, Al.
Yeah, I was going to say it's kind of a very stark difference to what we had when they launched the Era 300 and 100 last year, which out of the box kind of were really, really good and felt like a step forward. This feels very weird, and like you said, I found it. I apologize for chuckling when you said maybe they should have waited a bit longer. I still remember covering these. The first rumor I covered from these was like what, a decade ago, nearly, when they first started talking about them.
Mm.
But yeah, I think the thing that really got
I guess
me
that's tricky for the company, isn't it? Because basically they're a massively anticipated product, which is a good thing. You know, they have a big customer base, quite a loyal customer base. People love their products, and for a long time, people have wanted a pair of headphones. So then that's put a lot of pressure on this product. And as Andy said, it does feel a little bit like they've got to the point where they thought, okay, this product needs to ship, you know, and they must know that some of the things aren't ready. You know, having things not being compatible with Android feels too obvious of a misstep. So they must have just thought, we've got to go now and iterate once it's live. But I mean, I'm still moaning about the last app complaint. I'm still somebody who's dealing with Sonos S1 and S2 products. You know, I love Sonos and I've got plenty of Sonos products in my house, but some of them are a bit old and they don't talk to each other now. So it's that sort of software problem again. And I can imagine, I mean, I assume the headphones will just never work with S1 products, even if they do work with some S2 speakers. But it's that sort of issue, you know, as soon as you've got an app and you're dealing with software, it just becomes that much more complicated. Obviously, the positive is that hopefully they can do software updates and they can improve the product that's out.
Yeah, no, it's a good point because during our test, I think I heard that there was a slight issue with the ARC connecting to the headphones at one point, and there's a slight distortion, like the signal wasn't quite locked on, and so yeah, they felt a little bit buggy as well, I think. And also we had a slight lip sync issue as well, where the audio wasn't matching up with the picture on screen. We managed to kind of get out of that, I think, both times and get them back working properly. But yeah, it feels like if you do buy a pair, I definitely keep an eye on the old software update setting in the menus, just to make sure that you're up to date and you're getting all the features and getting all the functionality, because I feel like there'll be a few software updates in the pipeline in the next few months for these. So yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one again, because not wanting to compare to Apple too much, but love or hate Apple, they actually managed it with the AirPods Max. They brought out a pair of headphones at that price that worked well with Apple products, did the usual kind of thing, kind of seamless ease of use, that sort of a user experience. They kind of got nailed, and they nailed the sound quality and the noise cancelling. So it proves that it can be done.
You just need to be the most valuable company in the world.
Yeah, true.
Throw money at
it.
Yeah, no, but yeah, it's a good point.
But no, I was really having high hopes, even after we got the initial news before we even got them in for the Sonos, because you kind of hit the nail on the head. For non-Apple people, the Apple AirPods Max are a real desirable item for me, at least, because of their home cinema chops. They provide really good, if they're paired with an Apple source, spatial audio and Dolby Atmos effectively when you're watching movies. And the idea of having that experience at home, where if my wife or like anybody's around and I need to be quiet while I'm watching my movies, it seems like an obvious thing that Sonos could have really nailed and just so far haven't, which is a bit of a shame.
Yeah. But I guess in the same breath, we should remember the HomePod, which was a good product, but was very iOS centric, predictably. And I'm trying to remember the precise thing, but there are elements of of features on the HomePod which you can't do on Android, or you can't do outside of Apple Music, perhaps. So I guess there's always those sorts of limitations, and Apple is obviously often one of the main offenders when it comes to sort of locking down their products to
Well, they make them so good by
devices from the same brand.
Yeah, walled garden it basically. But that's again why I was hopeful for Sonos. I was like, are we actually going to get something that works on Android and stuff that's not Apple? Because I don't have a whole load of Apple kit in my house. But yeah, bit of a shame. Boo.
True. And headphones, going to be an interesting year actually, because are we expecting XM6s and are we possibly AirPods Max 2 as well?
Yeah, I think AirPods Max 2 are probably due, maybe even overdue. So I'd like to think that we might be able to see those by the end of the year's turn. XM6s, yeah, good question. Their cycle normally is like a 2-year cycle, and I think it's supposed, well, if you follow the last couple of launches, it's been, it would be this year. But as we've talked about on the website and a few news stories that we've done recently, it's been very quiet on that front. Normally you'd kind of hear leaks or see filings for the FCC in America of some new headphones being registered by Sony, but there's been nothing yet. And one of the rumors that came out yesterday was that they're going to be next year now, 2025, which would be the year that we'd expect both, well, XM6 in-ears would probably be due next year. So maybe they're trying to align them both together and launch them both in the same year, which would kind of make sense from a consistency point of view and their product portfolio range point of view. So yeah, it'd be nice to see these XM6s this year, but we're getting into the year now and it's been quite quiet. So maybe it is next year, but hopefully I'd like to see AirPods Max 2 this year, because that could be something special if they can take it up a level even with those. That would be something quite impressive, I think.
Yeah, and we've already had Sony do
and makes me think of say that again, sorry.
I was just saying we've already had Sony release a pair of over-ears, the ULT, which apparently doesn't stand for Ultimate, but
it stands for what does it stand for? They did tell me. It stood for something so annoying.
You started so confidently.
Erased it from my brain. Maybe it wasn't Ultimate. That's what I can remember. So I can discount
Ultra.
No, but it was. They kind of said that there were a number of things that it could apply to, and I kind of was thinking, well, if even you guys haven't really settled it, then I'm not going to buy into this either. But we
need to hook them up with the cord guys.
Yeah, we weren't collectively as keen on the Ult. That's kind of Sony's kind of not side project, is it? But it's kind of taking things in a new direction.
Yeah, it's aimed at a different customer, I think.
Yeah, more the youthful audience. But I've heard the Ult, and Eve and I, as someone clinging onto their 20s, just found them too overbearing. If you put the power bass mode on, I mean, it's like having your head inside a washing machine. You couldn't listen to them for more than a few minutes with that on, and it's just lacking in the sort of classic Sony refinement, which is a shame, because they kind of look and feel like a lovely pair of Sony headphones. But yeah, wasn't overly convinced, I think, collectively by the ULT. Yeah.
But dragging it back to XM6s briefly, no, I don't think they'll be here this year. Business kind of is where I'm starting to think it's going to be a next year job. And Bose already have theirs out, so there's a lot of if you're into premium wireless headphones, I mean, there's so much great choice out there. It's it's a good market to be interested in.
Another contender from Harry, perhaps.
Vocal,
too brief.
Backies. Which are good, but they're very chunky, so I don't really wear them out very much. But yeah, very good. Nice AirPods alternative.
Maybe we should do a headphone special at some point.
Headphone special. Well, I mean, yeah, we've just about run out of time for this week, so that could be next week's show. Just decided. No, we'll have a think. But yeah, thank you everybody for watching and listening. The What Hi-Fi podcast is back. We're going to be bringing you these more regularly. Do let us know what you think, within reason, in the comments, or over on the What Hi-Fi forums is always a good place. Talking of which, we are going to be doing some Q&As. So if you've got some questions for the team, head over to the forums, get them posted up on there, and we'll pick out some of the best ones, or maybe even all of them, and go through them in a future episode. But for now, thank you to Andy, Alistair and Harry, and we'll see you next time. Bye.